From protecting your brand to amplifying your impact, I'm your host, Tanya, attorney, entrepreneur, and fellow digital creator, and I have tips, insights, and actionable strategies on brand protection, trademarks, contracts, business setup, and other legal essentials to help you succeed. I believe that your visionary brilliance deserves to be safeguarded and celebrated. This isn't just another podcast, it's a movement, it's a community, and it's your secret weapon for shining your light with confidence and legal savvy while making your mark in your industry today and for generations to come. This week, I got a great Q&A question about reigning in a community that's getting larger and basically overwhelming and chaotic to the community host who's a team of one, right? So I asked 3 questions. 1, what rules and expectations have you outlined in the community guidelines? Where are the guidelines, and are you enforcing the rules and guidelines? Well, she responded, there were no official rules. There were just subtle reminders when things may get off course, and then maybe a statement to the effect of how everyone should act. And that, of course, was most likely buried in a comment or something, right? And her response, it's not uncommon. And it's sadly the reason why so many of you can feel overwhelmed and run over by your communities. But the worst part is you may have actually set yourself up for some serious legal liability. And don't worry, I know thinking about community guidelines, what does that mean? What are they and everything? You might have a little hesitation. You're just like, you don't know. What do you do? I'm in the same boat. I have started my new community, the Vibrantly Clear Society program, right? So it's a little different than what I have done before. So I have to create new guidelines because there's a lot more interaction and engagement. So I'm now drafting these community guidelines and rules based on how the program is being presented and run. So actually, the reason why I came up is because someone was almost doing the same, and this is a very timely question. Now, her community is a social media style community, and mine is more of an immersive style community where there is more visual and audio-visual interaction and the like. But it doesn't matter. These points, they're basically directed at both and useful for both. But a lot of this really does apply, especially to those where maybe you have communities within a membership or communities that have separate websites or platforms, maybe, for example, Circle, Mighty Networks, or the like. And this could include communities that have what I would consider like the hybrid chat and immersive community features, which include significant live interactive video portions or audio portions. For example, community meetups and even co-working hours, something via Butter or Zoom, or like the community I have, which is in Go Brunch, and that's an immersive platform, okay? So you're in there as if you are in the same room, right? So the whole point is to be immersed in a room and truly connect with each other as if you are physically present in the same room. So you can imagine with those type of communities, although again, this applies to even just having the chat type communities, something like Slack, Discord, even the Facebook communities. But if you have an immersive community, that engagement becomes more interactive, and visuals and rules really need to be more robust and properly defined and communicated. And again, I want to add that if you're talking about just group participants and users together, that is a community as well. So community rules are very much needed if you're offering multiple attendee trainings and events, okay? And that includes maybe if you're doing group coaching, because there is some interaction there. So you need to make sure that you have some type of rules. So yes, I'm more or less speaking to those list of guidelines and rules that every user member of a community-based kind of feature, whatever your offering is. This does go into any time that there are multiple attendees in anything that you offer. So going back to communities, even where the features may only be a written chat community, sort of, the community guidelines are still very paramount because through many of the platforms we're using, we're now able to allow users to upload videos, to upload documents. And even though it's just a chat, we have to be mindful of the content we're allowing users to upload. And this goes again for all of the types that maybe we're allowing them to upload profile pictures, right? For their profile, uploading videos, which contain who knows what, and then uploading documents that's saying who knows what, and who knows where these people are getting these documents or videos, depending on what you're asking for, right? So you have to have rules into what type of content can be uploaded and what's proper, because some of the stuff also may infringe on someone else's rights. So it does matter in so many aspects. And I actually want to touch a little bit on privacy, just briefly, because some of the platforms also allow you to private message another community member. Now, hopefully you have a platform where they can turn this off if they do not want to be contacted by another community member, but just having that feature that community members can privately chat freely or the like, you need to be mindful. And again, with any community providing video or voice interaction between users, showing users' faces, allowing the voices to be heard, the seeing of environments and the like, where all of this is accessed, and on display. So you want to be mindful of that. And you have to think of it too, again, as if, how do you protect people? What do you say? What's going on? Particularly when you have these immersive communities, because it's like you are physically in the same space, right? So again, you're getting more into someone's privacy and just seeing a little bit more of them, having access more to them and their environment. So your rules need to be a lot more robust. And as I mentioned earlier, the rules need to be monitored. Well, the actions need to be monitored, making sure that everyone is complying with the rules, and you need to enforce the rules. So it doesn't matter what type of community model you have. Proper community guidelines are an absolute must, and they must be communicated and enforced. Again, communicated and enforced. And it's preferable that you have them there from the very start and not an afterthought or after something occurs. But that's not always the case. Again, we were talking about the community hosts earlier who have had the community for almost a year. You know, you can still rein in your member. So Don't worry if you're just starting out or if you have this community forever, if it's a small community of 10 or a massive community of 10,000, where there's multiple user engagement interaction. This information, it applies to you and you can still get everybody on board and rein it in. So forget worrying about the fact that you've been operating for almost a year or even longer, right? However long you've been operating. And you are now trying to tell everyone what they can and cannot do in your community. It's no different than when you receive an email or notice from a service or company you subscribe to, and that notice tells you that they are updating their terms of service. And by continuing to use their services, you are agreeing to those terms of services, right? This is what you should actually be doing in your business anyway. Periodically updating your terms, guidelines, rules. You do that as needed and definitely when required by law. And it's common practice. It's really common practice. Things change, rules change. You just let people know that things have changed. And they have the option to continue, or they can decide that they no longer want to be part of your community. You give them that option. And you give them that option to leave or cancel. And if they don't wish to follow the rules, that's that. And you may be thinking, oh my goodness, but somebody just paid for a year or so and they're refusing to agree to my updated terms. Well, first, hopefully the rules you are implementing and the type of community environment you have is one that these rules are at base common courtesy and common sense. And no one would say that the implementation of the policies would ruin their community experience to the point that they should really get a refund or that they should cancel. Plus, I'm going to tell you, if they fight you on these more effective rules and guidelines, then ask yourself if you really want these people in your community because they're upset that you're trying to make sure that your community is safe and a place where people feel comfortable sharing regardless of what they're sharing, whether they're sharing what personal matters or business matter, or maybe they're just simply sharing their opinion on the subject. Please, you want to make sure that you create an environment where your members, your users can speak naturally and truthfully and authentically without worrying that they are going to, be injured or the like, or that there's information in there that's not trustworthy or the like, or there's something that they're getting from your community that isn't truthful or that it infringes on someone else's rights, right? You want to make sure that they are not injured or their business isn't injured. So if someone is upset about you making a space that fosters that type of environment, that safe environment, again, ask yourself if that's the type of person you really want in your community, you want your brand associated with. Does what they're asking you for align with your community values or with your own values? Because money doesn't matter. And you're going to lose money by trying to keep them, actually. And you know the saying, sometimes in order to grow, you have to let go. This is one of those situations. If your other terms and policies are properly in place, then their refusal may actually be a violation of those terms, and you would need to terminate their membership or access without a refund anyway, especially because you are making those guidelines, those rules, the community guidelines and rules, a part of your terms and services and policy anyway. So any breach or violation would mean that they are breaching and violating, those terms of service, those terms and conditions. So someone telling you that they are refusing to act in a safe manner, they can't be a part of your community. If you allowed them to stay, now you've created a liability because it's your responsibility to make sure the community is safe and trustworthy. If it's money and safety and trust within your community that are pitted against each other, then you let go of the money. That's my suggestion. That's my recommendation as an entrepreneur. You know your business best and your community values. I'll leave that to you. But that's definitely a point I want to make. All right. But we're going to go back to talking about reining things in. And again, doesn't matter if you're starting and your community is small or it's large. You really do want to do this in the beginning. You want to take proactive action and make sure that you have these effective and effective and enforceable rules and guidelines set up correctly, properly, with the robust terms at the beginning of, say, your community's life, and definitely throughout, so that everyone knows, what the expectations are and the like. But again, you can implement, update at any time. And definitely, if something happens right away, you're going to put those community guidelines in place. They're going to be communicated and enforced. Okay, that was my little beginning soapbox about the question. Let me give you some of the points that I had for answering that question about what to do. What should you have in your community guidelines, right? Regardless of the size of your community, the model of it, the platform it's on. All right. And I'm coming to you from this point. I know that when you're creating your community, at the top of your mind is fostering connection, collaboration, just sharing passions, experiences. Yes, engaging content, active participation, and a strong sense of belonging. You know the buzzwords. Those are all crucial elements for success. But in regard to those lively discussions and that content sharing and that robust engagement, your guidelines need to be set from the start to ensure that your space is safe, secure, and enjoyable. And while the guidelines need to be robust and coverage, they actually because they need to be well communicated. So they need to be robust, but they need to be very much understandable. So they can be simple and short documents as long as everything is understandable and communicated in the way that people know what the expectations are and that they're able to understand what you are asking or the actions that you will take if something happens. So again, remember that the approach is that these documents can be simple and they may be simple, but they still hold immense power. Because really what they do is they serve as the foundation of, yes, we want this thriving online space, but they protect not only your community's brand identity, right? We're talking about brand protection here. Definitely a big part of protecting your brand is protecting your members, your users, those who you invite into your space. So this is a big part of protecting your brand identity, your brand, but it is paramount, right? It is crucial for shielding your business from potential legal pitfalls and liability. All right, so what am I talking about when some of these things we're worried about is happening, or why would it really, really matter if you had your community guidelines in place? Well, let me give you a couple examples, right? So for those of you all in the health and wellness space, right? Think about it this way. Imagine you have this amazing community forum. Everybody's giving information, helping each other out and the like. And this forum is possibly dedicated to healthy living and wellness, right? Well, your community starts to grow and grow and grow. It's one of those open communities anyone can join. And then it becomes overrun with spammy diet ads or misleading health claims. Those are the worst, okay? What happens? The community's reputation for credible information dissipates, it crumbles. And then the users lose trust. They don't want to be a part of that. They're being scammed, okay? That is not what you want your brand reputation to be. For those who allow a lot of user-generated content, people can upload different things. What if you have a member that posts copyrighted material without the permission of someone else? Or, okay, people don't upload anything. What if you have points where people can privately message people or just general interaction and the like, and then one of the members engages in harassment towards another member, starts bullying them? There's a little hate speech that's going on, right? Without clear guidelines outlining the expectations and consequences. Let me repeat that. Expectations and consequences. There need to be consequences if users do not follow the rules. You need to have this in place. Otherwise, you're going to face legal repercussions, okay? So, by clearly outlining acceptable behavior, content moderation practices, and intellectual property limitations, we're talking about copyright, trademarks, patents, trade secrets, whatever the case, you cultivate a space that reflects your brand's values and fosters trust among members, okay? So we're talking about that brand identity, that brand protection. So what you want to do, you want to, get into the thought process of setting those expectations. And when you do, these guidelines, what they do is they're going to clearly outline acceptable behavior and user conduct. So acceptable, what is accepted? What isn't accepted? This protects your brand image by preventing inappropriate content or activities that could damage your reputation. And we all want our brands to be trustworthy, right? So clear communication about what's expected, it builds trust and transparency with your members or your users. And this fosters a positive brand association, and it encourages responsible participation. It encourages participation and engagement that is responsible. Again, I know that a successful community is all about the engagement and participation. You want responsible engagement and participation, all right? And of course, for your brand, you want to be known as building, running, and growing a safe and inclusive space, right? Always. So defined guidelines create a safe and inclusive environment for all members. And when they know that they can engage and interact freely in a safe and inclusive space, then you attract and retain those valuable participants who align with your brand values, okay? Very, very important. So, we were talking about brand protection or, your protection of your identity and reputation. But let's get to the legal side of it, where we're going beyond brand protection and we're really talking about legal liability and making sure that you stay out of hot water and at the least mitigating the risk, right? So know that community guidelines play a vital role in safeguarding your business legally. And this is because I talked about first, a little earlier, it's called user-generated content, and It's when you allow people to contribute things, right? And again, it could go from just their profile photo when they're starting the membership or they're accessing anything. Then you say, oh, well, enter a picture of yourself or the like. And so it can go from that to uploading a GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it, to a PDF document, to a video, to an audio file, okay? So whatever you're allowing your users to upload. So this is considered user-generated content, and you definitely want to manage what is being given to the community, uploaded, shared, and accessed by the community, right? So guidelines can establish the ownership rights for anything that is uploaded. So that'll shield you from maybe potential copyright infringement claims, right? Because what are you allowing people to upload or the like? Where did they get these images from? Where did they get this video from? Where are these documents coming from? Or even if they are from your members as original content, then your guidelines are stating that they own the rights to their own content, okay? So by outlining the acceptable content types, you minimize the legal risks associated with offensive or defamatory user posts, as well as you make sure that people feel safe to upload what you're asking them for because they know that their rights will not be infringed upon, okay? So you have to think about it in that manner. Community guidelines, they really can minimize legal risks by saying, okay, and now we're still talking about the community user-generated content because, yes, we're saying maybe you don't want to make sure that it's violating someone else's copyright or the like or whatever their intellectual property rights are. But you also don't want whatever they're uploading to be injurious in the manner of maybe what they're doing is uploading something that promotes hate speech, right? So you don't want any image, any audio, any visual that they upload to violate anything that you have about hate speech or bullying or things of that manner. So you definitely want to have guidelines to say what you upload, one, does not infringe upon anyone's rights. And we're going from their personal rights, right, to feel safe and be safe, as well as any intellectual, like business and commercial rights as well. So guidelines need to address that. When you are doing your community guidelines, for sure, there needs to be a framework process, something for dispute resolution. Okay, so clear guidelines, they're going to establish a framework, a process for handling disputes within the community, right? So if something comes up, this will help you address it, right? So you're empowered now to address conflicts fairly and consistently, all right? Needs to be consistent in how you address any conflicts that come up because that's what's going to help minimize legal complications. And I want to make a quick point about that is that you need to monitor what's going on in your community. It's very important. You can't just put out these amazing community guidelines and then you're not monitoring what's going on. And for those of you who have small communities, that might be easy to do as one person. But if you have a very large community, you're not going to be able to effectively monitor and enforce your community guidelines and rules without some help. So one of the things that you need to do is assess how much help you need and make that a part of your dispute resolution strategy. Now, regardless of how many people are in your community or even the dispute. If a dispute arises, please, 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 please listen to me. Address it right away. Address it, number one. Do not let it go. And then definitely address it right away. You don't want anything to get worse, right? Or something small turn into something big, and then it's all outside of your community. It's everywhere. Not only talking about protecting your brand, but now again, we're going back into this legal liability, because if you're constantly allowing someone to be damaged or injured, feeling harassed or the like, or that their property is being violated or infringed, then you being complacent makes you a part of that, doesn't it? You're saying, this is okay. This is what my community is about. This is what I co-sign to. This is not what you co-sign to. This is not what your community is about. So regardless of how small it is, at least acknowledge if somebody brings something to you that you understand, you've heard what they have to say, that you are going to investigate, and or you're going to apply the rules that you have specifically for that. Okay. And then you're going to document that. And we'll talk about this another day, because I can go on and on about that. But just make sure that you have some type of dispute resolution framework or process. And then if something does come up, that you are actually addressing it. All right. Another thing for legal protection when it comes to community guidelines, data privacy, right? So you want to protect the privacy of your members, your users, right? So community guidelines, they're a valuable, valuable, valuable tool because they help you address data privacy concerns. Because what you can do by outlining how user data is collected and used, it demonstrates compliance with the relevant regulations, and it protects your business from legal repercussions, right? So you want to make sure that you are letting people know that you value their privacy and you are protecting their privacy. And then again, this makes for a great user experience because people are going to share more, then they're going to engage more, and you're looking at your community as being a success by this engagement. But I'm not going to engage in your community if I don't feel that my privacy is being protected. Okay, so protect the privacy of your members and users. And another thing I would suggest is to make sure that you also, as we're talking about liability, that you put in your community guidelines and rules disclaimers and limitations of liability, okay? You're not responsible for everything. You cannot be responsible for actions of others. Your responsibility is when somebody does act, you tell people, what is expected. And if they go against that, then you make sure that there are consequences, but you are not responsible for their specific actions, and you need to state as such. So your guidelines, they can include disclaimers regarding the accuracy of whatever's posted. So if you're allowing people to submit things, then you're going to have something in your guidelines that will talk about disclaiming the accuracy of whatever's posted, and then your limits on liability for any harm caused by another user's interactions, okay? So know that. Clear guidelines, managing user expectations regarding data privacy, acceptable communication methods, dispute resolutions, how information is handled and the like, or what information can be accepted, what these community guidelines, and I'm saying clear community guidelines, what that does is it really empowers you to address potential issues proactively. We're always talking about proaction here. So it allows you to address potential issues proactively and minimize the likelihood of legal disputes. So, telling you why you should have all of these community guidelines, but what are some of the key terms specifically, to include in your community guidelines? And I know I touched on a few, but let's just make a list, right? Okay. Acceptable content, if you're allowing content to be uploaded, right? So you define what appropriate content types and topics are for your community, right? You don't want someone going on a tangent. You have a finance website. We're not talking about home decoration unless it has something to do with, making sure your finances are in order, but it really needs to tie in to the specific topics that you are allowing in your community. And again, whatever content it is, even if it is staying on topic, that it needs to be appropriate. So you want to define what types of content are allowed within your community. And then you do want to address things such as spam, self-promotion, and any offensive language. All right, speaking of offensive language and things, user conduct. For most, your community guidelines need to outline expectations for respectable communication. All right? And that communication, whether it's communication between members of someone saying something or they're uploading content, okay? And you definitely want to address issues in your guidelines about harassment, bullying, and hate speech. This is so important. And you want to explicitly prohibit content. And that's, again, the communication and content that is discriminatory, offensive, again, or bullying in nature. All right? Very, very, very important. All right. Talking about things that you're allowing your users and members to upload or just content in general, right? So let's talk about the ownership of content that is being uploaded. So you want to clarify the ownership rights for any of this content, this user-generated content. And this can mean, again, their profile pics, and it goes all the way through to video, audio, file submissions. We talked about that. Regardless of what it is or however it's requested, whether it's during registration, engagement, or even a giveaway, people are thinking about when they ask somebody to upload something, oh, we have a contest for this. This content I'm speaking of is all of the content you allow someone in your community to upload or share. All right. So you want to make sure to clarify who owns the rights of that. And we already talked about making sure that it's proper and respectable content and communication. But you want to say, hey, this content cannot infringe upon the rights of others. And they need to know, you need to know, and they need to say where this content is coming from, and they should have their permission to upload it, or they should not be able to upload it, all right, without permission. And you want to make sure you have data privacy terms. So basically, I'm specifying things that I've already said. So we're just, putting that bold exclamation on the thing. So you want to outline how user data is collected, how it's stored, and how it is used within your community. And you do that by putting that in the guidelines. And you also want to reference your detailed, right? Because I know you have one, a detailed privacy policy for further information, right? Because you're not going to put your entire privacy policy in your community guidelines. Remember, these can be simple documents. They're very, very powerful ones, but they need to be simple because you need your users to look and understand. So you properly communicate, but if you give someone too much information, they're going to skim through it. They're not going to listen to it. They're not going to look at all of it. They're just going to possibly check off the box. Now, that's not your problem because you've laid it out there But your problem is if you've made it too complex and it's just too much for them to understand, then is it proper communication? So put in the points that are important to be seen, noticed, communicated right away. But for something, because you do have a detailed privacy policy, of course you do, you're going to have them reference. You're going to make a reference to that, a link to it, okay? All right. I mentioned this too. Make sure, because this is an important one. And this goes on. I know we think about like sort of chats that are online social media chats, but this happens a lot of the times in the chats, even if you have a video chat or the like, in any space that you allow someone to write in something or even to say something really quick. Spam and self-promotion. You have to tell people, and you have to truly define acceptable practices for self-promotion and advertising within the community. They are not supposed to, just talk about their business, and promote themselves, and particularly if there are means of privately messaging or contacting, engaging with other community members, that they're not going to send them all of this promotional or spammy information. You definitely need to have guidelines right away, monitor that, and stop it right away. Do not allow it. Yes, you can have those times where everyone can say what they're doing and give all of their information, whatever promotion or thing that they're doing, but let your community know, your members and users, they can only do it at those specified times, and they are not to harass people. We think about harassment as being, someone saying something about someone else is just, disrespectful tones, mannerisms, words, not respecting someone else's opinion, right? But harassment is if you are sending me things, if you are constantly in my presence when I'm asking you to stay on your side of the chat, right? Or you're just steadily sending me things, that unsolicited things, and that is considered harassment. And you are going to make sure that that is not a part of your community. And again, like I said, if there's a dispute that comes up, so you want to make sure that you have key terms in there about dispute resolution. You want to provide a clear process for users to report inappropriate content, and you want to outline the consequences for violating those guidelines. And I'm going to say it a million times. Hear me. Listen. Let it be ingrained in your strategy. Make sure you are actually enforcing these guidelines and rules, and you are enforcing them consistently. All right, let's wrap this up. Here we go. It's very, very, very important to make sure that you have community guidelines, right? So you want to create these guidelines. You want to properly communicate these guidelines. Make sure that these guidelines are understandable, that they are somewhere that your users and members know where to access. That's part of that proper communication. And you must make sure to address any information, any incidents or the like, and enforce these rules and guidelines consistently. So, a lot that needs to go in a small document, right? It doesn't need to be several hundred pages, it could be one page, but just investing time and the effort and crafting well-defined community guidelines and rules, it's really an investment in the health and success of your business, because it empowers you to build a thriving online space that really fosters trust, protects your brand, and safeguards your business legally. All right. I hope this has been very, very helpful. and that you are able to get the information you need and some actionable steps to help you protect your brand and create an extraordinary experience for your members, your users, your community overall. If you would like more information, you love these tips and the like, please consider joining our Vibrantly Clear Society program or subscribing to the Vibrantly Clear Society resource library. We will have resources on how to craft your community guidelines inside. There's also workshops that I give on topics such as this. So please make sure that you are subscribing to my newsletter and also checking our community calendar. The links are in the show notes so that you can see when our next event is. Definitely, we do all brand protection ones, but specifically if there is a workshop on crafting community guidelines. I try to touch on this topic several times a year. And if you are a member of our Vibrantly Clear Society or you subscribe to the resource library, then there will be information inside of the resource library that can help you with crafting your robust, right, well communicated, enforceable community guidelines. All right, with that, I am wishing you optimal success and health. And please subscribe to the show and send us a review. Let us know that you like this episode, as well as let me know if there are any topics that you would like me to address. And particularly, even with this topic of community guidelines, if there's something specifically that you want me to hone in, let me know. Subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe to this show, and take care. We'll chat soon.